Very nice. Wonderful.
Yeah, she's going to be doing something. But we went sailing. If you fancy sailing, no.
Very nice. Very nice. The old coal yard and stables. The area in front of you saw a number of different uses in the past. Initially, it appears to have been a coal yard. The miller William Catt had his finger in a number of businesses, including the importing and redistribution of coal.
You show her, Ollie. Very assertive, that's what, get out of here.
Excavations have shown a buried chalk floor with a black coal dust trample on top. The whole area was enclosed by high walls, the first of which were the flint cobble examples that run along the footpath to New Haven and the main village street, undoubtedly to stop villagers helping themselves to a bit of free coal. Later, after Catt had expanded the quayside by the mill, the other flint walls of downland flint were built to scene his own garden from the dusty coal yard and block off the old beaching ground for barges on the foreshore. Well, let's continue with the reading. Sorry about that. The first buildings in the area were those established by David Dale, a former jockey turned racehorse doctor. He arrived at Tide Mills in the 1920s and would walk the horses in the sea as part of his cure for lameness. Oh, goodness. Dorothy Dale and her new husband William Jack Sylvester. The stables he built were extended a number of times. By the late 1930s, they had reached their peak, with 16 loose boxes, each with a semicircular trough in one corner. They were weatherboarded timber on a concrete base, and there was a covered bath to wash the salt water off the legs of the horses. We have few images of this time, but do have the plans for his bungalow and a rare aerial view of 1940. We also know that his daughter, Dorothy, eloped with one of his former head stable lads. At some point in 1940, the stables were demolished and the area defended by the army in readiness for the expected Nazi invasion. Some of the holes in the walls, if not created by the army, would have been used by them to use this end. When the threat of invasion passed, the village was used to train troops, and a number of huts were established over the old stable floors. These are the latest buildings in the village, but were dismantled at the end of hostilities. The last surviving horse trough. Can you find it? Shouldn't think so. Oh, very interesting stuff, I do say. By the mid-18th century, the course of the River Ouse had changed so that it emerged at New Haven, not near Seaford as it had done before. As shingle built up to close the eastern mouth of the old river course, a tidal creek was formed. The creek was situated in the manor of Bishopstone, owned at the time by the Duke of Newcastle. He leased the land to 3 West Sussex corn merchants who recognized the potential of the creek to drive a mill. The mill that the merchants built had 5 pairs of millstones, which could grind about 3,500 pounds of flour a week. This was then transported by barge upriver to Lewes or by sea to London. Although the mill was of brick, most of the other buildings used flints from the downs and beach, often mixed with recycled brick and stone from other sources. Brilliant. William Catt was the most preposterous and well-known of the mill owners of Tide Mills. In 1808, he took overall control of the mill and expanded its size. He increased the stores, added a blacksmith's, a carpenter's, an office building, and a granary. The success of William Catt is demonstrated by the following obituary. Few men, so long a career, ever wielded a more powerful and useful influence in a neighbourhood than the deceased in this part of England. The well-known mills at Bishopstone became so influential under his direction as to govern the flour trade in the south of England. Authorizing and enabling John Woods, William Woods, and John Challen, merchants to erect and build one or more tide mill or tide mills for grinding corn and grain upon a creek or channel in the manor and parish of Hopton in the county of Suffolk. Golly, that's strange. Strange they did that. Very nice. In the field in front of you are a few overgrown, ragged walls, all that now remains of numbers 2, aka Meadow Cottage, and 3, Tide Mills. Careful archaeological excavation and recording, together with analysis of maps and early photographs, has established these buildings have a complex sequence of development. The earliest of the 2 buildings in the southern cottage, a simple structure built largely of flint and reused brick rubble, with heated scullery and living room on the ground floor. An animal shed with troughs and outbuilding were added, as well as an internal copper for doing the washing, and later still an outside water closet in the yard. Closet, which is the word commonly used in America and Canada. Wonderful. Simplified phasing. Brilliant. Although these buildings appear to be depicted on the 1841 Tithe map, they are not listed as being a dwelling at this time, so it is possible that number 3 is either a post-1841 conversion of these buildings or a replacement of them. Archaeological excavation did not go below the latest surviving floor levels to establish the presence of an earlier building. Jeering family. Front of Meadow Cottage. Meadow Cottage was added to the northeast side of the earlier cottage. They consisted of a hall, heated living room, and probable early scullery with fireplace. A complex sequence of extensions followed, much simplified on the plan. These included both small additions such as the bay window and porch, and larger ones such as a new wing and scullery. Externally, new garden walls were created and an outside water closet added to the yard. Historical records show a number of different families lived in these cottages, but were very fortunate in having a number of images from the Jeering family, who resided at the Meadow Cottage from around 1900 until the village was evacuated in 1940. These unique images depict both the cottages and, more importantly, the people who occupied them. It appears likely that the cottages were finally demolished just after the end of World War II, and most of their superstructure removed. However, archaeological excavation has shown that the foundations and many internal features still survive very well. Brilliant. Brilliant. The station master's cottage. The ruined house, positioned next to the old Tide Mill station, is often called the station master's cottage. Although various station masters did live here in the later 19th to 20th centuries. This building has an earlier origin. Detailed archaeological excavation and recording combined with historical work has shown the cottage was originally built in the 1830s using recycled bricks from Bishopstone Place. This phase 1 has contained only 2 downstairs rooms, one with fireplace, and an outside toilet and coal bunker. The cottage, which was shown on the 1841 map, was probably built by the miller William Catt to act as a gate lodge for the main street into the village. When the railway was extended to Seaford in 1864, the track and new station were right next to the cottage, and sidings overlay part of the original garden. The cottage was doubled in size, probably in 1879 or 1880, after the Harbour Company, backed by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, had taken over the mill and village in 1879. The new build of flint with yellow railway brick quoins added a new room with fireplace and kitchen scullery, and was almost certainly undertaken in readiness to house the station master. A new small yard was built to the south to counter the loss of the larger earlier western garden. A number of later alterations were made, including a new outside toilet with running water, a possible chicken house, garden cold frame, and internally raised floors due to damp. Some of this work may have been done by the last known resident, George Ford, who was in the cottage from at least 1932. After the villagers were cleared out at the outbreak of World War II, the cottage was damaged during military training, and a number of bullets have been found during the excavations. The cottage was probably demolished at the end of the war. Tide Mills, a harvesting coin. Bye. The forgotten village of Tide Mills. What was the village of Tide Mills? As you walk along this path, you will see all the remains of the village of Tide Mills. In the mid-1800s, this was a thriving village, which had grown up to house the workers of the mill which stood on this site. The mill was driven by the power of the tide and ground corn for flour to export across southern England. Oh, tide mills, alas, you are no more. No more are you seen on the Sussex shore. The winds that came from o'er sea once turned your sails so merrily. Extract of a poem by Mr. Arthur Davis, former resident of Tide Mills. Oil painting of Tide Mills circa 1850. Telling the story of Tide Mills. In 2004, Probation, English Heritage, East Sussex County Council and located people worked together to produce a number of information panels to help interpret this site. Excavations since then by the Sussex Archaeological Society have increased our knowledge extensively through a generous grant from East Sussex County Council's New Haven Community Fund. The SDNP Authority and SAS have revised the old panels and created new ones to help you understand this important site. Carry on along the path to find out more. Parts of the site are structurally unstable and the ground very uneven. You are advised to stay on the paths for your own safety. Brilliant.